A day before recording this video, I posted a poll to see what people thought the worst of the Fallout games were, and I wasn't surprised by the results, even with 10,000 plus people responding to the poll. But I wanted to take a video and talk about what is the worst Fallout game, what does that mean, and what does it look like in a way. Taking a look at the poll, I listed the 3 Fallout games that I remember being received the worst when it came to either their initial launch or how the fans responded to them. Now, everybody has an opinion about each of the games on this list. I also put an other category for people who didn't see what one they thought was the worst, so they could comment and, talk about which games they thought were the worst in the series. The reason I listed Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout 76, and Fallout Shelter on the poll itself is because these 3 games are the most divisive when it comes to fans. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is largely credited, and it won the poll, by the way, so we can just get that out of the way. Staggeringly won the poll. It's not even close. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is definitely voted from the people that responded to my poll as the worst Fallout game, and there's good reason for that, and we're going to get into it. But I listed Fallout 76, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, and Fallout Shelter, like I said, because they're the most divisive. Fallout Shelter is a mobile game that departs a bit from the Fallout formula that we know. Either you come from the classic games like I do, where they're trimetric and they're these big giant stories and these awesome open worlds, tremendous RPGs, or you're from, you started with the Bethesda games, which are giant, awesome RPGs in open worlds, just from a different perspective. So Fallout Shelter is a bit of a departure from that. It's a mobile game. A lot of people consider it to be a, quote, cash grab, but I do know that there's fun to be had in it. When it comes to mobile games, I think Fallout Shelter is one of the better ones. At least it was when it launched. I remember playing it a lot back then. I was really excited that when they announced Fallout 4, they're like, by the way, we have this mobile game you can, try right now. And also it's been ported to the Switch, which it's fun to play over there as well. So it's not really, are these games fun to play when you play them or anything like that. When I speak about the worst game in the Fallout series, I think about what game like just doesn't feel like Fallout. Now, and like what doesn't feel like Fallout, but at the same time, a lot of people could take that and say, well, like 76 doesn't feel like Fallout because it's online and it has all this. But when in Tactics could be on this list as well, because I remember when Tactics was launched, when it was released, feeling like, hey, this isn't Fallout. You know what I mean? I've grown to like Fallout Tactics quite a bit, see it for what it is. It's a tactical squad-based shooter based in the Fallout universe, as opposed to, oh, here's this next great, open world RPG in the Fallout series. Regardless, these 3 games are the ones that people bring up the most when you say, hey, what's the worst Fallout game? So first, let's talk about Fallout Shelter, because I feel like that is the least offensive on this list, even though some would argue, well, it's a cash grab and you spend a bunch of money on all this, lunch boxes, all these accessories and stuff like that. But if you look at Fallout Shelter in the realm of what it is, which is a mobile game, it's not as egregious as it can be. There's a lot of mobile games out there that really, really make it so like you cannot do much at all unless you start spending a lot, and not necessarily a lot of money, but regularly spending money on it in order to enjoy the product. And while I agree that you can do that with Fallout Shelter, you can also not do that with Fallout Shelter and still have a pretty enjoyable experience. I know a couple of people that absolutely refuse to buy into microtransactions and stuff like that, and they have a great time with Fallout Shelter. So I know that it can be done, but again, just the essence of a mobile game is enough to send people to the this isn't worth my time bin. And I understand why. Mobile games have gotten a bad rap for a good reason. They're typically predatory. They're constantly over-monetized. And Fallout Shelter definitely, if you were to put a Venn diagram, would fall into some of those faults as well because of, again, the genre that it is. It's a mobile game. But I don't look at it as being, the worst of the series, because I almost don't look at it as it's a part of the series. I look at it as like literally its own little spin. Because don't even get me started about Fallout Shelter Online, the Chinese exclusive. It might be available in a couple of other areas, but I know that it started in China and it's been mainly Chinese exclusive. We don't have it in the United States for sure. And I know that some people have like found ways to have like play a translated version and stuff, but I'm talking about officially released situations here. So I don't know anything about what the monetization is like on Fallout Shelter Online. But again, it's a mobile game, and it exists in its own realm in that atmosphere. So when you and again, I mean, you can play it on PC. I have it on Steam, so it can be featured in your list of Fallout games with the rest of them. I believe it's on all the consoles, actually, on Xbox and everything. But it's just, for being what it is, being a mobile game, like I said, it's one of the least predatory mobile games that I've played. I don't play a whole lot of mobile games, but I can think back to like other things that I really enjoyed, like Simpsons, and then like checking out Simpsons Tapped Out. And if you compare Simpsons Tapped Out monetization wise to Fallout Shelter is a clear winner, at least in my experience. I haven't played it in any real capacity for a couple of years, but I know that they had all kinds of cool quests and stuff like that to it. So there's stuff to do in Fallout Shelter, but I don't want to spend the whole video talking about Fallout Shelter. I just think that when it comes to the bottom three, as I'll call it, instead of the top three, the bottom three Fallout games, Fallout Shelter is the least egregious, in my opinion. Next, I'm going to be talking a bit about Fallout 76, a game that obviously has improved upon itself tenfold since it launched, but that stink, that taste in my mouth, that bad taste, that aftertaste that Fallout 76 left the first time I played through it, and the launch of it and all that, it sticks with me on a permanent level. And it is a game that I have a personal disdain for. I really do not like a lot that it has to offer, though I don't just blindly hate Fallout 76. I see where it does things really well. One of the things Fallout 76 does really well is the world map. It's probably the best world map that we have in a Fallout game. Appalachia is filled with cool things to check out, different biomes. The map is far more vertical than we see in other Fallout, including Fallout 4. Like it's like there's bigger, taller structures, which make the world seem that much more, massive. And a lot of that kind of stuff, I think Fallout 76 does really well. The cryptids and a lot of the creatures that have debuted in Fallout 76, love them. I think a lot of them fit perfectly into the Fallout lexicon of lore. I think they're cool. But the online nature of Fallout 76 takes a bit of it from me. And like, I remember the No Clip documentary where, Todd Howard came in and he's like, oh yeah, it's the multiplayer for Fallout 4. And I understand why people want that experience. I've wanted it before myself, which is why I used to play the F Online games, which is the classic Fallout games made to be played online, with both Fallout and Fallout 2's map typically modded and edited to different, kind of feeling, but sometimes they just leave it the same, put it online, and then you can, play throughout that world with different people, different kinds of quests and NPCs and stuff like that. So the idea of an online Fallout, in fact, they were making a Fallout Online before Interplay went under. That looked like it was going to be pretty cool. I think it's the way Fallout 76 approaches its online situation. They went more, and I'm not going to sit here and argue like what's good for business and I'm not a businessman. I'm whatever. Obviously, a live service game in today's world, in today's video game market, is a good choice. A lot of people will sit there and say, oh, I hate live service games and I don't like this and I don't like that, but they will play them because they're designed to be addicting and fun, and unfortunately also designed to monetize the sin out of everything that is involved in it. Now, 76 has this. I remember watching more currencies be introduced into 76, be like, oh, here we fucking go. I also remember like, oh, it's only going to be cosmetic in the Atom Shop, and then quickly it wasn't only cosmetic in the Atom Shop. There's a lot of things with 76 that left a bad taste in my mouth, and some people, as the game got better, people were like, they would forget or forgive the things that had happened before because the game's better now. But it kind of sticks with me. The launch kind of sticks with me. The shoddy products that released with the game, like the duffel bag and the Nuka Dark bottle, those things stick in my mind. The moldy power armor helmets that would end up getting like moldy after a while. People were having issues with that. It was just a total lack of quality control when it came to Fallout 76's launch. And that stuck with me, like I said before. But is the game better now? I've played it a couple of I've played. I even started a new character and started doing streams on that, and I played it a bit, not nearly as much. Like I played the hell out of it because I have over 1,000 hours into Fallout 76 altogether from Series X and Steam put together. So I know I played a lot of it, and you may be saying, well, if you didn't like it so much, why did you play it? There was times that I really did enjoy it. I really enjoyed the Nuclear Winter Battle Royale mode. I thought that was fantastic. They used to have survival servers where you didn't have to like ask permission to PvP. You could just PvP people on the streets and take their shit. I thought that was really fun and an added risk and reward to the game that I found to be fun. Now, the live service model doesn't super work with me when it comes to the Fallout. Yeah, I much rather would have appreciated an MMO style game where like you quite literally live in the world, where it's like, oh, you can buy a house in a city, or like forge your own house in the wasteland and live off that, and gather resources for the things that you're trying to do in your own little life. And the quests and those things exist outside to, give you experience and show you the world and things of that nature, much like classic World of Warcraft or, EverQuest or whatever. Now, again, I'm using those are totally outdated examples, but I'm just using those as an example of like that MMO style. I think would have worked a lot better. And it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be super role-playing about it. It doesn't have to be a role-playing server, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like that would have worked better for me when it comes to an online Fallout, which was what I am to understand how Fallout Online was going to be, because that was in production before these live service games were really a thing. So they were making like an MMO Fallout. I think that would have been preferable to me. Again, the game has gotten better. They added that new part of the map, the Skyline update, I believe it's called. It's just that they are adding things to the game. They are making it better. It's much better than it was before launch. But something about it, I once used when I was talking to Zach from Nuka Break. I used this analogy because he asked me about it, and I said one of my favorite restaurants is Red Robin. If you don't, if I imagine you know what Red Robin is, but if you don't, it's a burger restaurant. But I get the chicken strips, which they call clucks and fries, and I go there and I say, yes, I it's been my favorite restaurant since I was in like, I don't know, like 9th or 10th grade. And I am 36 years old and I go there all the time, multiple times a year. And every time I've ever been there, I've only ordered the clucks and fries. That's because when I think of Red Robin, I think, oh, those chicken strips, that sounds good. That's what I want. And then I go and I get it. Now, that's just me. Some people probably think that's fucking wild. Like, why don't you mix it up or whatever? But it's just like, you got to think, when I think of that place, I think, oh, that's the flavor that I'm looking for. Those are the things that, trigger in my brain. Oh, these chicken strips are really good. That does sound good. That's what I want. So when I go to Red Robin, if I was to order clucks and fries and they're like, oh, well, here's a burger though. I love burgers. A big old cheeseburger is one of my favorite things in the world. But I didn't go to Red Robin to eat one of their delicious burgers, which I'm sure they're good. You know what I mean? I went there for the clucks and fries, and that's how I feel about Fallout 76. I go there looking for Fallout, and instead I get a burger. I get something different. I get something that's not, like, it looks like Fallout, it plays like Fallout, but it doesn't really feel like Fallout to me. Now, again, doesn't mean that it's a, quote, bad game. I just think that it departs from so much of what makes Fallout feel like Fallout that I don't really get the vibe that I'm playing those games anymore, which is why I think it remains on this list. But it mainly stays at the bottom 3 because the launch was so disastrous, mixed with the fact that it's a live service game and it has microtransactions in it. There's a whole big wave of things on why people can dislike the game. But honestly, that's how I feel about it. When I told Zach that, he said, or something that he interpreted as, if you go to Red Robin and you order those Clucks and fries, but then everybody at the table just starts eating from them. That doesn't bother me so much, but I understood what he was trying to say of like, you got this meal for yourself, but now you have to share it with like, a whole lobby full of people or something like that, meaning the online aspect of the game. And it being online isn't super the part about it, it's how they've put it online that I think keeps it as being a top favorite among fans. People just they've already been miffed by it, so they don't want to give it the satisfaction of giving it another chance, which I can understand. And so it remains on this list, but I don't think it's the worst Fallout game. I do think that the one we're going to talk about next is far worse, far more egregious, and was really a sign of the times of where the Fallout series was heading. I think that Fallout 76 has turned itself into a perfectly cromulent game that I can find enjoyment in sometimes, when I'm like, but honestly, it doesn't hold my interest a whole lot. But I've seen other people devote hundreds and hundreds of hours recently to that game, constantly playing it every day, and that has to stand for something. I know that some people get addicted to that live service style, but I don't think everybody that's playing Fallout 76 is just addicted to live service games. They must like something about the game. There's things I like about it as well, so it does make sense to me. But we're going to talk about what I think is the worst one next. So we made it to the part where we're going to talk about Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. In my opinion, the worst Fallout game, and a lot of people's opinions, the worst Fallout game. Like I said, the poll, it was a landslide victory for Fallout Brotherhood of Steel being the number 1 worst Fallout game in the series. One of the experiences I had recently was a little bit weird that I'll share just a bit of, where I streamed Fallout Brotherhood of Steel, and maybe some of you were in the chat. Either someone pretending to be the lead dev of Brotherhood of Steel came in and was talking about various facts of game development about the game, which made us all believe that it was likely the lead developer, or at least one of the developers that was, pretty high up in production at the time for the game. But then they started acting very like weird and trolly. So I don't know if it was really like the actual person who worked on this game, or like one thing that really sets it off for me is like this person used the term cap, like no cap, and they would have been older than me because they worked on Fallout Brotherhood of Steel when they were around college age, and I'm 36. That it would have made them in their 40s, and it just doesn't seem like something a game developer in their 40s would be saying, unless people can be chronically online. But I'm not trying to derail it from that. It was a weird experience. So if it was really the main developer of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel that was in the chat, you acted like an ass, and it was weird, and it made the game feel even worse. And if it was just some troll, use your time better. Anyway, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel to me is the worst Fallout game because it kind of shows where the series was heading, in my opinion. Now, obviously, we've all heard that they were working on Fallout 3 Van Buren, which, judging by the design documents and people who have brought portions of it into fruition, it was going to be a pretty good Fallout game. It was going to be a worthy follow-up to Fallout 2 and have a lot of interesting, cool story elements, great NPCs, things of that nature. But what we ended up getting, we can't ignore. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel was the first console Fallout game. It is not good. Now, you may be... some people... It's weird because you talk to some people like, well, it got me into the series, or, I first played it, so I'm nostalgic for it. I'm not talking about nostalgic bias. I'm not talking about, oh, I have a special place in my heart. I'm looking at, like, I have a special place in my heart for all Fallout games, but I have to look at them objectively and, understand that. First, okay, let's start. The whole Snowblind engine debacle where the developers of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel stole the Snowblind engine from Dark Alliance and used it without permission. They got in trouble for that, legal trouble for that. You can look that up. That's something that's very easily looked up, and I'll probably show a screenshot of it. But if for some reason I forget in the editing process to put up a picture of like the lawsuit or whatever, you can look into that yourself. That's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to why this game is bad. They took that Snowblind engine, and if you go and play Dark Alliance 2, they're fantastic games. So like these are incredible. These are some of the best games that I've played in that era, in that genre. They're fantastic. So how come when they take something as awesome as Fallout and slap that skin on top of that engine, why is the product so mid, I guess you could say these days? And I think the reasoning is I call it Fallout's edgy teen years. It started listening to heavy metal. It started worshiping pinup models. It started thinking dick jokes and piss jokes and stuff like that were not only funny, which of course they can be in context, but that they were going to die on that hill. That was like, like there's so many different, like you're introduced to a prostitute character who's looking for her dead cat, or I don't know, she probably doesn't think that it's dead yet, but her cat's missing. The cat's name is Mr. Pussy, and of course, help me find Mr. Pussy, says the prostitute with giant breasts that are heaving towards the screen. And again, I'm not some prude, it's like I grew up in that time period too. I very well remember the way women were depicted in video games in the early 2000s. Not all the time was it terrible, but a lot of the time that's what was used to sell things or to make them more appealing to the target audience, which is teenage males at that time. I understand that. I'm not blind or, I'm not ignorant to that tactic or fact. As I said, I was a teen boy in these years. I didn't play Fallout Brotherhood of Steel when it released. In fact, I totally missed my radar. I don't know why. There's a huge portion of games that I should have played in the early 2000s that I didn't, and I can only assume that like that is like around the time I got like my first girlfriend and I was outside skateboarding all the time. So I feel like I missed a whole portion of video game catalogs because I was out doing shit. But coming back to Fallout Brotherhood of Steel now, is even more egregious because where the series goes. You see what Bethesda's done with it. And people, we're going to talk about the Bethesda games after this because there were people that left comments that said, well, Fallout 3 is the worst Fallout because Bethesda sucks, or Fallout 4 made it a looter shooter and not a Fallout game. Though I haven't seen a lot of people mention New Vegas. I don't know why. But regardless, we'll talk about that after this. But Brotherhood of Steel is a parody of the series, in my opinion. It's a parody of Fallout. You see Fallout posters for the original game littered all over the place. There's a Balls energy drink sponsorship going throughout the whole game. So instead of Nuka-Cola caps, you collect Balls caps because these Balls energy drink caps were more prevalent in Texas, which is where the main bit of the game takes place. Carbon, Texas is where you start. They take a reoccurring character like Harold and turn him into just something ridiculous. Change his voice completely, make him weird. Like it's just they take a lot of things and they botch them, in my opinion. The story isn't that great. I have a video, by the way, that discusses in detail the whole story of Fallout Brotherhood of Steel if you're interested in that. I do speak to some of its merits in that video. I do call it the black sheep of the Fallout family in that video. In fact, I think that's what the video is called. But it is egregious. It is the worst Fallout game, in my opinion. It completely departs from what makes Fallout. It turns it into a dual stick shooter for the most part. And again, there's games like Dark Alliance that took that exact same engine and made something beautiful out of it, which boggles the mind on why something as amazing as Fallout would then translate into something not good. There's heavy metal music playing throughout it, which again, no problem with heavy metal music, no problem with the bands featured, but it just doesn't fit with the Fallout aesthetic that you're used to. And I can go on. Like the retrofuturism's out the window with this one. the gameplay's janky. It gets boring a lot of the times. You're tasked with doing the same thing over and over again. Clear out this whole area of enemies, and then you can progress to the next. Again, these types of dungeon games are fun and exciting and genuinely good in some areas, but something about Fallout Brotherhood of Steel really leaves a lot to be desired. And objectively, I will say it in this video, objectively, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel is the worst the Fallout series has to offer when it comes to official releases. Now I want to talk about the Bethesda era, because there were some people that hit the poll, clicked others, and then talked about some of the Bethesda games. First, I want to talk about New Vegas because it was the least mentioned. When New Vegas launched, it was a buggy mess. It was very, very broken. It improved. They patched it, obviously. You can run it on modern systems better than you can Fallout 3 with just a little bit of tweaks. If you just limit that FPS, you should be pretty good out of the box. It does still crash quite a bit. One of the biggest inside jokes amongst Fallout fans is, you know, New Vegas has stopped working, stuff like that. Fallout 3 I have a really hard time running on modern PCs. But again, that's not super what I'm looking at. The best way to play those games that I've found, if you're just playing them vanilla, is to fire up an Xbox Series X and play the digital versions that are available for download through the Xbox market. They are... I streamed both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, all DLCs, and I had one crash in each the whole time. So that was very good. It was a very good experience. And if you look at it just from those perspectives, I don't think Fallout 3 is close to being the worst Fallout game. A lot of people give it a lot of flack, but when it was first announced, it brought tears to my eyes that Fallout was coming back and that a studio like Bethesda was going to be the ones helming it. I hadn't really heard of Bethesda before, but then people started showing me Oblivion. They're like, they make stuff like this and they're going to be working on Fallout. And I was like, this is amazing. So when it launched, I was all in on Fallout 3. I think it's a terrific world that they've set the game in with post-war DC. The Capital Wasteland is fantastic. The NPCs we meet in the game are great. The story, the first time we go through it here with Fallout 3 of, oh, your dad left the vault and you're going to find him. And when you find him, he's working on something that's bigger than everybody, that kind of thing. I liked that story. We're going to talk about Fallout 4 here in a minute, but I liked that story. A lot of people look at it as like being a shallow story or whatever. In hindsight, I think when it launched, that it was a terrific way to tie the events to Fallout into something like, you know, that, where it's like, oh, how do we get the player character out of the vault? They have a father, the father leaves, you start to learn about your past, your father's past, what he's working on, and it all comes together. And it's much bigger than the vault, it's much bigger than the wasteland, it's much bigger than you, and I like that. Some of the things I didn't like about Fallout 3 was the reuse of things that were already in the Fallout series, but I also understand why they're there. The Brotherhood of Steel, the Enclave, Death Claws, Rad Scorpions. I understand why they're there. Super mutants. They're a staple of the series at this point. But it would have been nice for Bethesda, in my opinion, to explore different things that could be existing in the Fallout world much more than they did, since the Fallouts that came before Fallout 3 took place on the West Coast. Now that we're on the East Coast, there could have been a huge difference of things that we're finding over there. Much like how you see with 76 these days, where they're adding different things in, and it's a much bigger cast of characters when it comes to creatures and events than we would see on the West Coast, and I like that. So regardless, the story though of Fallout 3 and the reason, let's not go too fast, the reason I understand why all that stuff is included in the game is because they're making a Fallout game. Caps for currency, people recognize that as a Fallout thing, let's put that in. Who cares if it's already been explained away in the Fallout series? That's okay that it comes back because it gives Fallout a different personality. Oh, Fallout's the game where you use bottle caps for money. Okay, that's okay for that being a staple. Oh, Fallout's the game that has super mutants in it. That's okay, fine. They explained these things decently in Fallout 3, with the exception of the bottle cap currency, in my opinion. I feel like bottle cap currency has been grossly misunderstood as the series goes on, but again, I'm fine with it just being arbitrary. Oh, bottle caps are what we use for money in the Fallout world, that's fine. The FEV and the Super Mutants and the Enclave and the Brotherhood, I think, are a little bit more of a stretch. But again, this is a Fallout game. We want to see all those things in it. I think story-wise, gameplay-wise, both Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 are great games. I like Fallout New Vegas a bit more. The reason I like Fallout New Vegas a bit more is not because, oh my god, the story is so much better and I love the environment so much more and all this other kind of stuff. It's because it's very simple for me. I love the classic Fallout games, and Fallout New Vegas feels like an extension of those games in a more modern situation. And so I feel more connected to Fallout and Fallout 2 when I'm playing New Vegas than I do when I'm playing Fallout 3. That's really the top reason on why I like New Vegas the most. When you get into Fallout 4, a lot of people immediately with the family main quest where it's like, oh, it's just reversed. Now you're looking for your kid and you leave the vault looking for your kid and it's bigger than the wasteland, it's bigger than you. I understand why that main quest now seems a bit more shallow since the events of Fallout 3, because it does seem very similar. On the surface, it seems very similar in my opinion. But what I like the most about Fallout 4 is not the main quest, it's the improvement on gameplay. I really enjoy the cycle that you go through in Fallout 4, where it's like, oh, I'm gonna, you go out into the wasteland, you do some quest, or you hit a location, you loot everything you can, you bring it back to your settlement. I like that gameplay loop a lot. I also like how fluent the gameplay is. I like the gunplay in it. I think they did a very good job on making the game fun to play. Now, is there like some steps down when it comes to an RPG element? Yes. Is there some steps down in like a really in-depth main quest? In my opinion, yes, it could have been better. But I don't think that's the worst Fallout game either, because it still feels like I'm playing a Fallout game. Those ones I mentioned before, like Brotherhood of Steel, they don't feel that way. Obviously, everybody's opinion is going to be different when it comes to which game is the worst or best in a series. But I'm pretty safe in saying that objectively, Fallout Brotherhood of Steel takes the cake when it comes to, quote, the worst Fallout game. It doesn't feel like Fallout. It is completely egregious with a lot of its liberties it takes with the series. It had the audacity to exist in the series when it comes to its gameplay, its setting, its characters, including the Vault Dweller from Fallout as, Vault 13's Vault Dweller as some kind of mystic NPC, which is a cool idea on paper, but they botched that too. But everybody's opinion is going to be different. Some people really don't like Fallout 4. Some people really don't like Fallout 3. Some people don't like New Vegas. Some people really don't like 76. Some people say that the series was going fine and you can overlook things like Brotherhood of Steel, but you can't overlook things like Fallout 76. Whatever your opinion may be, the Fallout series is pretty great. And we have a tremendous catalog of games to pick from when we're talking about the best and worst of the series. And when the worst of the series happens to be like a dual stick shooter that can be at times pretty fun to play, but at sometimes is also really egregious to digest, we're still eating pretty well. I just wanted to talk a bit about, everybody's perception of what, makes these games bad, what makes them good. And I think when you start to see a further departure of what people expect from the series is when you really start to see people fall off from it. But when you have something as objectively janky as Brotherhood of Steel, it's, a pretty easy contest. Like I said, the poll speaks for itself. But, of course, I want to know what you have to think. Tell me in the comments, what Fallout game do you think is the worst? But don't just go down there and say a title. Let me know, why do you think your pick is the worst of the series? It's just curious to me. Everybody always talks about, oh, this is the best game, this is the best game, but it's like, what really is the worst? And I'd love to hear your take on that. But until we meet again, I thank you for watching. It has been Mantis.